You're listening to the Mind Your Business podcast, episode number 4. Today's episode is called, Who Are You to Be the Expert? We're going to talk all about how to actually overcome the fear that most people have about stepping into the spotlight and sharing their genius with the world. So, stay tuned. Hi, I'm James Wedmore, and I've built a 7-figure internet business that offers the financial freedom to do what I want, when I want. And I'm the first to say that hard work and hustle are not essential ingredients for your success. So, how do you build a thriving business from the inside out? This is the Mind Your Business podcast, featuring myself and co-host Phoebe Mroczek. Welcome to episode number 4 of the Mind Your Business podcast. I'm your host, James Wedmore.
I'm Phoebe Mroczek, your co-host.
And in today's episode, we're going to talk about who the heck are you to be the expert? Gasp.
So we are going to be talking, I know that this is a topic that a lot of people get hung up on.
No, this is a topic that everyone gets on. There's like 2 types of people. There's the people, if you're building a personal brand, you're creating a course, you're putting yourself out there, you're a startup, whatever, you're putting your picture on something, you're filming a video, you're making a podcast. There's 2 types of people. There's either people that are sitting there freaking out saying, who am I to be doing this? And they're like, vocalizing it, or there's the people that are freaking out and saying, who the heck am I doing this? And they're not telling anyone. Everyone goes through this at some point. I don't care who you think you are. And I think that's really important to start out by saying is like, I want to validate and honor those who are feeling that, they're resonating with this, and say that me, even 7 years later, I still deal with this. All the time. All the time.
Well, I think that, just to hear that, we've gone through the past few episodes and we all know that you run a 7-figure business, and to hear that you actually struggle with that too is something that is nice for me to hear, at least, and I know it will be for everybody else as well.
And I did struggle with it a lot more than I do now, and we have to improve that relationship. We have to get around that. Phoebe and I were talking earlier about this concept of the relationship of the analogy of the rider and the elephant, which is like a psychiatry term or something that kind of used to describe the rational, logical side of your brain and the emotional side of your brain or your body or your soul, which is that, like, we have this logical decision-making, problem-solving, left brain person. That's the rider, and they're on top of this elephant, and they're steering the elephant. But the elephant is representative of your emotions. And even though the rider's like, okay, go left, go right, if the elephant doesn't agree with the rider, guess who wins? The elephant, the emotion. So if you're feeling, oh my gosh, who am I to be saying this, or to be doing this, and to putting this out there, and like, who's going to actually listen to me? This is huge, and we want to address this, and it's very common. And how are you supposed to go forward if you're feeling this way? You're going to be stuck. The elephant's going to win, right, Phoebe?
Right, James. So we had talked about earlier, there is a big paradox. Which I was going to say is the big elephant in the room, but...
We already used the elephant analogy once today.
So this big paradox that we're talking about is that you can't sell if you're not an authority, but then you can't be an authority if you haven't done it yet.
Done it. Yeah. Which it can be an authority. It can be a paradox. It can be what gets people stuck. Is it like, if you want to sell something as a personal brand, like package your knowledge, package what you've done. Okay. Now we're not talking like if you're selling software, but even like a done for you service. Like, Phoebe, I want to do your Facebook ads for you. Well, have you done Facebook ads? No, but I'd like you to pay me so I could just figure them out or something. No, you have to be perceived that you know how to do that stuff. So you can't get the yes, you can't get the sale if you're not perceived as the authority. And then, of course, you're not an authority if you've never done it. So for a lot of people, it's a hard place to be in because it's getting momentum and getting out of inertia, which can be the hardest thing. And we kind of want to help you guys out of that and push you and bump you right now.
So, James, you have been perceived, obviously, as a YouTube video authority. So do you want to speak a little bit about that and how you got started with that?
Yeah. I think that's good to kind of put some of this in context a little bit. So what do you think an authority is?
So I think when I hear that somebody is an authority in a specific industry, I always think of someone who really knows their stuff, who has it all together, and someone who has the experience and track record to prove that they know the material.
Yeah, and I think the magic word for me in that definition is experience. You know, it's one thing to like read a book and then like regurgitate it and say like, I know it too because I learned it. It's like you don't really learn it until you apply it, you know, and then look at how you applied it and what worked from that and what didn't. And then I think the other element of it is you have to be able to get others to replicate what you do. So if I'm the expert in, let's just keep going with this Facebook ads analogy here. The Facebook ads example is that if I'm the expert in Facebook advertising, am I really the expert or authority if I can't get anybody else to do it and have the same type of success I did? Not really. So first of all, I have to have the knowledge. Okay, check. Then I have to have the experience of doing it successfully with the results. Check and check. And then I have to be able to replicate it with others. So again, if you're just starting out and you're like, okay, I see all these people making money and doing this business and blah, 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 but they all seem to be like an authority. There's an authority on Periscope and there's an authority on Twitter and Instagram and YouTube and blah, blah, blah. Like, how do I become the authority? I've never done any of this stuff. I'm brand new. And if I'm brand new and I want to start making money, I can't make money until I do all this stuff, but I have to be an authority. And it's just this catch-22 cycle. So emotionally first, we want to help you out of that. And I'll address Phoebe's question really quickly. She'd asked me about how I was perceived, how I got to become the YouTube authority, which, yes, thank you, very humble that there are some people out there that perceive me as the authority on YouTube. So I'll be very honest that I've struggled with this more than most people, probably. However, I was aware that I was struggling with it and I was committed to overcoming it. And we'll share with you guys some tips in a moment, the 7 tips to overcoming what we're identifying this as is self-doubt. So the 7 tips to overcoming self-doubt and just owning it, so you can become the authority in your industry. For me, today and for several years, I've been perceived as the YouTube marketing authority. How the heck did I get there? I got there kicking and screaming. Like you have no idea. First of all, being an introvert, we'll talk more about introverts in future episodes. We're not very good as introverts at self-promotion. And part of this takes self-promotion, like being able to say, yo, I'm the best. I'm awesome. I'm great. Look at me. I want the spotlight and stuff like that. That's not me, right? So it did start from the beginning of me using YouTube in different businesses. So I had a bartending product that I sold. I learned how to bartend. I became a bartender. And then I started teaching other people how to bartend. And I used YouTube to do it. That got me business and results. I sold a product on bartending on the internet. Hey, YouTube's working for me. Then I started working for other businesses, consulting with them. All of a sudden, I've really mastered this thing, not just in my own business, but for other people. And those are like the first few ingredients, as we've kind of explained. However, at the end of the day, when it came time, like, okay, James, you're going to create a product on YouTube, which my first YouTube product came out in 2011 called Video Traffic Academy. We did over $400,000 in sales on a $97 product in 30 days. Product's gone on to do a couple $1 million in sales, you know, now that it's like 4 years later. And like people still come up to me and they're like, oh my gosh, I took that course years ago. It became like a staple in the industry. It's like freaking amazing. I owe all the credit to somebody else. I had a really good buddy of mine I met in 2009. Some of you guys might know him, Lewis House. This podcast, it was like one of the top podcasts on iTunes called The School of Greatness. At the time of this recording, he's just about to release his book of the same title, The School of Greatness. And he and I had been friends for a couple years. He comes to me, he's like, we should do something together. I was like, no, we probably should. He's like, what do you want to do? I was like, I don't know. We could create a product. He says, that sounds great. What do you want to create a product on? I was like, how about YouTube? And he started introducing me to his audience. And he would literally say, James is the best YouTube marketing expert that I know. So all of a sudden, I had this other person who already had this great big audience and this big following, and it was just leveraged or borrowed authority. He just gave me his and said, he's the best. Here's the deal. That's what I needed to overcome this. And that's like cheating, because not everybody's going to get that opportunity.
Right.
Like, we can't create a podcast episode. It's like step 1,
find a really successful friend.
Step 2, convince him to brag about you every single day. That really is what launched my career. I mean, $400,000 in 30 days on a $97 product. And from there, it was history. Like, that was the launching pad. And now it's just been my job to be like, okay, reach more and more, perpetuate it, grow it, and expand it. But I did it kicking and screaming. And so if you don't have that luxury or that opportunity, you got to do it yourself. And it is a little hard. So we're going to give you guys some tips here on mostly the mental aspect of this, because you can go out and do all the action items that people tell you to go be the authority and create a course and create content and blah, blah, blah. But if you're still struggling with the elephant piece, the emotional subconscious piece of, but who am I to be the expert? Like, you're just going to get hit up against a brick
Your
wall.
elephant's not going anywhere.
It's not going anywhere. It's really stubborn.
Yeah.
It's going to, you're like, oh, I want to go that way. And it's just going to be stubbornly stuck.
Well, I think this is a really important point to kind of bring out in this podcast, because I know that a lot of people are struggling with this when they are launching. And it's kind of that, we were talking about like that paradox when you're trying to get a job when you're 16, but you need experience to get a job. But how do you get that experience? Because you're 16,
Same thing, yeah.
Exactly. So, it's nice to know that when you were starting out that you just gave it a go and started your bartending and kind of moved on from there, but had the experience with YouTube first before you started to develop a product.
Yes.
Other businesses, I guess.
And again, like if you were to look at the whole story and lineage of like my journey, it's the whole common theme is it's a leapfrog. Like one thing led to the next, which led to the next, which led to the next. So some of you guys are looking at someone who's like, oh, I wish I could be like Hillary Rushford, the Instagram queen, and how do I get there? And you're looking there versus like the 10 steps she did before that to get there. And you're just, it's a total breakdown for you that you're not already there. Like, how am I not already the expert at this? And it's like, whoa, there's a lot of other steps to get there. And we want to talk about that. So let's go into this right now. The 7 tips to overcoming that emotion, that feeling, and that belief of self-doubt, of that, who am I to be teaching this, doing this, sharing this, so that you can actually step into being the authority in your industry and just friggin' owning it. So here we go.
So number 1 is worrying about who am I is selfish.
Yikes. We kind of rub your nose in that one. Yeah, having this, well, who am I to be the expert? It's kind of selfish because what it is, yes, it's it's self-doubt, but it's a concern and a fear that you have about not looking good, about what people are going to think about you, how you're going to be perceived, if you're going to fail, whatever. Those are all internal, self-driven forces and fears and limitations. It's being selfish.
Yeah.
And the moment we can shift to it and by saying it's not about me, it's about the message and it's about them. It's about the audience. We can start to soften this a little bit. Okay. Who are you not to be delivering this? Who are you not to be teaching and sharing it? If you have something that is real, like, right, it's based on an experience, not just I learned it in a book and I just want to regurgitate, copyright plagiarism and here you go, I learned it, it's yours now, and I'm going to put my own name on it. But it's your own experience. It worked for you, and now you're teaching it to others. It is your duty, your right, not your duty, your responsibility to share that with others.
Yeah, I think I used to be in network marketing when I was younger.
What?
I know. And I used to always tell my team members, I'd be like, you know what? You need to get over yourself because this is all about you. And stop making this about you. Make this about your message and what it is about, or just changing people's lives. And I think that is very applicable to this situation.
Now, here's another thing. This is number 2. Let you go ahead and say it.
So if you're not an authority, you're creating your story.
Ooh, I like that because it kind of rhymes. If you're not the authority, you're creating your story. Now, here's what I mean by this. And this was something that really helped me along the way. When I was getting started, I struggled. I struggled a lot. I was really frustrated. I was upset. I was living at home. I couldn't even afford to pay rent, let alone like food. I was eating Subway sandwiches, and I'd get the $5 footlong. So I had lunch and dinner. Boom, $5.
You're resourceful.
Totally. So this is something that helped me a lot, which is while I was struggling, I would tell myself, I would say, James, this is all going to be part of your story one day. You see, if you look at anybody that you follow, anybody that you look up to, anyone who's a leader, guru, which I put in the finger quotes, expert or authority, they all have a story. They all have their hero's journey. And you can't have, this is a fact, you can't have a story without 2 things. A protagonist, which is the hero, which is you, and conflict. So like the classic example I give is Mark Zuckerberg couldn't teach a course on how to make money. Like the guy just said, I want to make Facebook. And then he's like, $1 billion, right? Like, where's the struggle? Like, yes, I know there's drama and yes, he had a movie made about him. Maybe it's not the best example, but he wasn't like, for 10 years, I struggled and I was broke and I couldn't figure it out. And then all of a sudden, boom, it all clicked for me, right? So what if you could sit there and say, you're struggling right now, you're a little frustrated, a little upset, you're not where you want to be. And you say, wait a second, I'm living the story that I'm going to be sharing one day. Like, imagine if you were standing on stage sharing this very moment or this last breakdown that you just had, and that becomes part of who made you who you are. And for me, when I would remind myself of that and tell myself that over and over again, I said, James, one day you're going to be a source of inspiration for others, and you're going to talk about your humble beginnings of living in your parents' basement, not even being able to afford rent, let alone lunch and dinner, so you had to eat Subway every single day. And here I am talking about it.
Yeah, and I think people like to hitch their wagon to a star that's been through that struggle. Everyone that it's come easy to, people don't really resonate with that, and it doesn't make you relatable. When you've actually been through it and you're there to tell the story, then all of a sudden immediately now you have something to relate to people about. I have a hard time relating to someone like Mark Zuckerberg, but someone else who's been through really traumatic experiences, or maybe they were broke or had some sort of trouble, then for me, those are the people I really like to follow and I kind of get behind.
Yes. So just remember that if you're not where you want to be yet and you're sitting there saying, who am I? You're creating that person right now. You're creating the backstory to your authority. And we need that conflict. There's always a breakthrough from that breakdown. And that's the breakthrough that you get to share with others. So you might just not be there yet. It might be in the middle of the movie, not the end.
Yeah.
Be patient.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. Number 3, you declare it, no one will for you.
Okay, so that's a huge thing. We're asking this question, who am I to be the expert? And we're kind of like expecting someone to tell us.
Someone's just going to like wave their magic wand over your head.
Yeah, or give you the official certificate and award. Like, yes, you are the Periscope expert. Here you go, and here's your cap and gown, and congratulations. Now go forth, my friend. It's okay that we kind of are like that because, well, I don't want to get into this too much, but that's kind of how we've been ingrained for at least 18 to 22 years of our life is to okay, you have now officially learned math. Mm-hmm. You're graduated, you have a degree, you have a label, you have something that makes you an expert. And in the real world where, maybe you're teaching something about relationship advice or feng shui or how to use social media in some way, there isn't anything like that. And some people say, no, there's certification programs over there, certification programs. And yeah. And who do you think created those?
Yeah.
Right? So here's the thing. We are waving, you can't see us, but we're waving our magic wand right now. And we give you all permission to be the authority that you need to be to help people based on what you actually can help people with. Now, huge disclaimer is that I'm not the fan of the fake it till you make it thing.
Right.
Don't lie, don't deceive, don't manipulate. Being an authority, again, is about sharing the experience that you have had, the personal experience that you've had that has created some sort of results for you. If you know how to tie your shoes and you actually tie your shoes, you can teach someone how to tie their shoes. You're an authority in tying your shoes. Just because everyone else knows how to tie their shoes over the age of 5 doesn't make you not an authority at tying your shoes. Okay? Real simple. But I give you the permission to be the authority. Phoebe, do you?
I definitely do. We're both waving our magic wands.
but seriously, no one is going to come and invite you to be the authority. I mean, and the thing is I'm the walking contradiction of that. That's exactly what Lewis Howes did for me, and I just caught a lucky break. I don't know what I would be doing otherwise. I mean, just very lucky, very very grateful for that.
Cool. So number 4 is, I think this might be my favorite one. So make your goals and mission bigger than yourself. Help other people. And one quote that I heard from Dale Partridge, who I actually quite like, he said, if you want to make $1 million, help 1 million people. And I thought that is something that people forget all the time, is just, we talked about getting over yourself, but how can you make your goals not just a dollar figure or, how much money are you going to make this year? What are you going to do with that money? And how you're going to spend it, but who you're going to help, what is your mission, and make that about other people. Make it bigger than just who you are. When
I see people online that are doing whatever they're doing with their business and their personal brand and the self-promotion, I can draw a line in the sand. I say that there's 2 types of people that, just from an energetic feeling, how they resonate with me. And there's 2 types. There's people that are is this working? Please. Try it. I hope, fingers crossed, that type of energy. I can't even put a word on it. If you guys could see my face, I'm just ugh. And then there's this other part that's I'm doing this whether you like it or not, because this is who I am and this is what I'm doing, and deal with it.
Yep.
And you can draw a line in the sand. I can tell you every single time who, just by reading their copy, the energy of the words they use and the language and all of that entire experience, who's making the money and who's not.
Yep.
And really my lesson from this number 4 tip of making it bigger is realizing that like the moment you do make it bigger, that's when you get that energy of like, I'm doing this for others because I have this bigger vision and passion of helping others. And that's what's more important. Not like, okay, I just got to get mine so I can get back to everything else. And it just doesn't work. People aren't stupid. They're going to see right through that. And that's the thing. Like, I do want to be a little braggadocious and brag about myself a little bit. Is that's a huge thing people say about me. It's a big piece of feedback and I love it. So I'm always trying to even make that bigger and expand upon it. Is they're like, I can tell, James, you care so much and you really do want to help people. And you're so like genuine is a very common thread in the feedback for me. And so I think that's extremely important because part of the element and the definition of authority that we haven't talked about yet is trust.
Yep.
You know, someone might be the expert in something, but if you don't trust them, are they your authority? Are you going to look up to them if you don't trust them? No. And so having that energy of being genuine and helping people is really going to help that.
I think also, well, one question I would ask you is, is that something that you made a priority in your business, that you just, that was your goal, your mission was to help people? Do you have a specific mission?
Well, what happened was when I first got started in about 2008, it was like, I'm going to make some money. Like, oh my gosh, there's this thing called the internet and I can make a ton of money. And what I realized is I went, further down the path, learned more about this whole, concept of spirituality and all that stuff. I removed myself and became less detached to the money and more about everything else because there's a great quote I read that talks about like, goals have metrics and they're measurable, but like fulfillment is something that you can't measure. Like you either are fulfilled or you're not. And that just becomes so much more important to people long term. They'll accomplish their goal and then they're like, is that all it was? Now what? And so I learned really quickly, like, okay, like we did a $400,000 launch. And then like a month later, I was like depressed. Like, what do I do now with my life? Like everything had worked up to that moment. And you're like, now what? It became more of a place of abundance of let's help people. Let's keep doing this. Let's have fun with this. And I think that's really what it takes versus this place of coming from a place of lack of like, let me try and figure it out. Let me try and do this. But I'll tell you, because I've been around for a long time, I first got started about 2007. I saw so many shisty people. Most of them have scattered like cockroaches when you turn on the lights because social media, social media wasn't really around in 2007. Facebook had only come out like 2 years earlier and it was still only available to like college kids for the most part and like high school kids. But social media and like Twitter especially really shined a light on some of the schemy, scammy, shady people that were out there, and they've since gone. But I saw some of that stuff up close and personal, and I'm so grateful for it because it was like there's so much temptation for it, especially back then, to just be like, I know how to make money on the internet. And people are like, here's all my money. And it just was this perfect like set a foundation of like, thank you. Here's how not to be.
Yep.
Here's what I don't want. And I saw firsthand people that had been like victims of scams and things and just like taken for like thousands of dollars. And I'm like, and they were like okay with it. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't even make that money in a month. And you're just like okay with that. So.
Well, now you can't hide online,
Can't hide.
Like,
I know.
It is just, if someone has a bad experience, and if you're building your business for the long haul and you're in it for the long haul, then, what are you doing if you are being one of these shysters and you're cheating people out of money? People are going to find out about it. And I think if you do make your mission to help people, then it's just so, I don't know. You get that feeling from somebody, who the real people are, and you attract the same people that, that you are. So if you're attracting shysters, you know why.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So number 5 is something that we alluded to a few minutes ago, but replicate your system to get others results and then highlight them.
Yeah. I don't think you're an authority until you can get someone else to do what you can do. I think that's what really makes you the authority is you've turned it into a system. You've turned it into something that anybody could do that doesn't have the same skills, knowledge, whatever as you. Okay, not necessarily universal across the board. Anybody can do this, but that most people who don't have the experience and wisdom you do can now be transferred to them. So if you're sitting there going, who am I to be the expert? Who am I to be the authority? Who am I? Well, what is really stopping you from saying, like, let's just slow it down, make it simple, and say, okay, why can't I just go find someone, a friend, a peer, a random stranger, reach out to them for free and say, I have this skill, I have this expertise, this specialty, this whatever. I want to help you, and I'm willing to do it for free. Would you like to work for me and become a case study? Why aren't more people doing that? I don't get it. We're all going the hard way about it, and this keeps coming back to our main theme of like there's so many more easier ways to do it. If I wanted to become an expert in Periscope today, there's two things I do. First, I'd be on Periscope as much as I could be. I'd be doing it as much as I can. Mm-hmm. But then I would go to other people, and I would help them build their Periscope strategies. And I would coach them and work with them for free, and I'd measure their results along the way. And no one is going to say no. I don't say no, and not that many people come up to me, and it's fascinating. I think it's like once or twice someone has done this to me. But I would never say no to someone who's like, hey, I see you've got this great business, and I have learned this really cool thing. I want to try it on you, and it can help you in this way, and I just want to use you as a case study if it works. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
Well, I think people get so caught up in the price tag and making money so quickly that they're too good for it. You know, they're too good for free help when that is the only way that I know to actually like really refine your system. And everyone wants to be when you buy somebody's program, you're buying into their system. So why not spend the time to actually test it out on other people, other industries, businesses
to know it even works.
Exactly.
Like, so even when we created Video Traffic Academy, I hadn't done it for that many other people other than my own businesses. So I had partnered with another person. We did it in the relationship space, and I did it for my bartending stuff, and then I did it for my own like affiliate stuff. Okay, so I had like I had a couple affiliate niches that I was doing, but I hadn't done it for anybody else. I found a friend of mine. Her name is Kristen Eckstein, and in the first half of 2011, she has a business where she helps people with book publishing and book marketing. And I said, for free, I said, okay. I got her up on a phone call or something, Skype, and I said, I did the keyword research for a YouTube video, and I said, I want you to create a video on how to write a book and get it published. That was the exact title. And I said, send it to me as soon as it's done. Within 7 days, I got it ranked to the #1 spot on her YouTube channel, and she became the case study for my entire webinar, Selling Video Traffic Academy. She booked 2 $10,000 clients from that video in the first month.
That's amazing.
That's all I needed.
Yep.
Here's somebody who had never used YouTube before. They weren't that great on video. Like, they'd never really used video that often before. And now I've just optimized their YouTube and done all this stuff on their own channel, and now they're getting more business from it. So there's the proof. There's the results. It's with somebody else. That's all I needed. Now I'm the authority.
Yeah, and now in the future, she's going to recommend, looking at referrals, who's she going to be thanking for her success online? It's going to be you. So not thinking about that, but as, selfishly considering things like that, I think are really important. So should we get into number 6?
Yeah, let's do number 6.
Okay. Teach and share freely on what you already know.
This is kind of blending on this too, but you got to understand that authority, being an authority, is a perception. It's part of a brand. And a brand is just like how people perceive you emotionally, logically, etc. How do they describe you to other people? And when someone's like, oh, you should follow Phoebe, she's a Facebook ads ninja, that they perceive you as the authority on Facebook advertising, right? So one way that we have to do this is not be the hoarder of our content and expertise. Now, this becomes counterintuitive to what people think is as counterintuitive, and they start now getting into a whole other headspace of like, how much content is too much to give away? I don't want to give it all away for free because then no one will buy from me. And what's the little quote we came up from? Like, the more I give away for free, people will buy from me. Yeah. And like that becomes your guys' mantra if you're in that headspace of like, I don't want to give it all away for free. Guys, the more I give away for free, the more people will buy from me. I have like 500 and something videos just on one YouTube channel alone. I mean, I'm trying to give as much away as possible. We're going to do 100 episodes on this podcast at least. I'm trying to give away as much as I can for free, and my sales have done nothing but skyrocket.
Exactly. If you're any indication of how much to give away for free with all your YouTube videos, obviously, there's something to be said for that. But I think people get so caught up in what to give away, and again, we'll go into a lot of this on future episodes. But when it comes to like what to give away for free and what not to, it's like, if you're not giving it away, somebody is. So
yeah, exactly. Like,
so I want to be the one to do it.
I'm the only person that has this information, and everyone else just has it wrong except me.
Exactly.
Only person on the planet That's not what being an authority is about. It's about what I like to say, investing in your customer first before they invest in you. And that means invest in their education, invest in sharing with them, and your knowledge, the content you share is what builds the rapport, the trust, and the relationship that gets them to perceive you as an authority. You cannot be the authority without sharing the content in some way, shape, or form, period.
Yeah, and I think also just to actually refine your teaching styles, especially for people who are maybe going into a new industry, maybe you're teaching something different, the more that you're available and around, if you're becoming a Periscope expert, you're teaching, so you're refining your message and you're refining your voice and all of that. So selfishly, bringing it back to your own business, this is something that is really important. The more you teach, the better you get.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I'm still learning that. I'm still learning more about who my audience is, what my message is, and it's never about getting it right, getting it perfect. It's about progress. It's about growth, and it's about stretching yourself. So let's get into the last one.
Yep. So the last one is you don't have to be the best to be the authority.
Yeah, I think that's another misconceived idea that being the authority means you have to be better than everybody else, that you have to be the best. And it's just like, that's so freaking impossible today.
Well, and like, what is the best? What does that even mean? Are you the best, you're the best presenter, or are you the best?
How do you measure it?
Exactly.
And the thing is what we've really gotten is that you're just not going to resonate with some people, period. Doesn't matter how good you are. Doesn't matter how awesome you are. People are going to say like, I don't like him. She rubs me the wrong way. Yep. And then other people are going to be like, you're amazing. You get me. You get me so good.
Speaking right to me.
I've had, what's the most common thing that people say to me? It's kind of creepy. Like, it's creepy because so many people say it, because it's just an odd thing for people to say. But I get a lot of older women that, I know this sounds like I'm going somewhere really weird with this, but like older women in like the 40-year-old range that say, you remind me so much of my son. I don't know how many times people have told me that. Like, okay, so if someone is like, if there's a guy in his 40s also doing YouTube, like, I gotcha. Like, there's nothing you can do about that. Yeah. Like, I remind them of their son.
You win.
I win. But obviously, someone else who's like a young female entrepreneur is going to say to the other guy, you remind me of my dad. Like, and my dad was my biggest role model. I was like, okay, I can't touch that. So like, there's so many things that people are going to have their illogical, emotional reason as to why they have gravitated to you or why they hate you. Not that anyone's going to really hate you, but they're just be like, not for me. For some people, they love my sense of humor. I have the same response, is that, some people are like, oh, he's so funny. I love your sense of humor. And then there's the same group of people that say the exact opposite.
Right.
Which is, why are you trying to be so funny all the time?
I can't help it.
So like, where do I go? Do I listen to, should I be funny or should I not be funny? Or should I just be who I am and just do what I do and let the chips or whatever fall where they lie, and the cards, that's what they are, right? Oh, brother.
Well, I just feel like it's so much easier. I was just having a conversation a few days ago with one of my friends about how everyone trying to be somebody else, and you're trying to replicate somebody else's talents and their presentation styles, whatever. It's exhausting, and I think when you finally take a step back and are able to just be yourself, it's so nice. And I know for me personally, I've followed a few people, and I know I've gone through their website, I've read their copy, and then I meet them in person. And I'm like, oh, that is not what I thought, and that to me it just seems really exhausting. And now with social media and with the internet, you can't really hide. And I think, why not just be yourself, because you want to resonate with.
Do you know, in the olden days of the internet, in like the olden days of the internet, people used to create these like pseudonyms, like alter egos, where like I'd say, oh, I'm going to start a business on how to golf. And I just call myself like John Smith, and like say I'm this golf expert and write this sales letter, find some random stock photo of a golfer and like sell product. You can't really do that stuff today. It's crazy. But speaking of that, okay, let's go on a little tangent for a second. This is something that we've heard our entire lives. Be yourself. Phoebe, how do you be yourself? What is the instruction manual? Like, what are the tips and advice for being yourself? Because I actually think this is kind of hard.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't even know what to say to that.
Are you being yourself on this podcast?
I like to think so. I'm not really sure.
It's hard though.
It is.
Right? Because it's like, okay, so we're supposed to learn from these other experts. Always be learning. You're listening to other podcasts, you're watching other videos. But it's like, are we supposed to be learning what they say, or like trying to just model who they are? And like, holy cow, like it can be hard. Like, who is yourself? Like, I think the moment I feel like I'm myself is the moment I just say, I don't care what anybody else is doing, or how they're doing it. I'm just going to do my own thing as if I'm doing it just for me.
Yep.
And I think that's like being yourself, but sometimes being yourself is a work in progress.
Yeah,
like maybe
sure.
it's like, okay, well, we need to polish this up a little and repair this over here and change that. I know I've had to do that a ton, but it's still coming from within, right? It's still me versus like, let me just pretend to be this person over here and let me just act like them. So I don't know. It's great advice. Yeah. How do we be ourselves? I don't know.
Well, I was always told, so in this company that I worked in when I was 19 or 20, and they always said, they're like, just copy my exact phrasing for everything that I say, and soon it will become you, and you will like step into that. And now, at some point, whenever this feels like you, that's when you know you've made it. And I just remember being like, wow, this just feels really awkward.
But one day it will feel normal.
Exactly. It's like brainwashing. I'm not really sure, but I do think that it is important, we are obviously a little bit malleable when it comes to, especially being online with all this information, and you start to mimic people, things, phrases, and all of those just seem to be normal now. So how do you kind of pull out yourself from all of the noise, I guess? And
I don't know. I don't really know, but I think you'll know the moment you're not being genuine and authentic. I know you'll know the moment you're like, okay, I'm just stealing this, or I'm just trying to be like this person. And that's when you're like, okay, well, you're not being yourself. And I think step one to being yourself comes down to, is great, just like coming full circle, is like being confident in who you already are.
Yeah.
And like a lot of this is what it takes, is like, if you don't have the inner confidence and certainty and conviction about all the stuff we've laid out here about stepping into that authority role, no one else is going to perceive you as an authority. It really does start with how you see yourself first. Gosh, so good. We probably should have put this at the beginning, but it's how you see yourself is really how others will see you. Oh, let's say it better. How others see you is how you really see yourself.
Yeah.
Today, there isn't an inkling. It's like a chest of armor. There isn't a chink in that armor about my confidence that I have about what I know on the topic of video and YouTube for small business owners, about things like video SEO, about building an information business, a course business. I mean, there isn't one wavering of doubt. And I know today that standing in that place and that feeling, that like vibration, it's reflected back with me with how my audience is. If I had a lot of doubters and like, is this guy a scammer, blah, 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 like I would know that first stemmed from my own self-doubt.
Yeah. Well, people are a mirror for you. And so the people you're attracting, your customers, your team members, I think we have a really nice team, so I think that's all reflected in
Are you talking about Team Wedmore team?
Yeah.
We really do.
Yeah.
We really do. Thank you for saying that too. Yeah, it really is. It definitely is. I mean, like we talked about this earlier about like, you're going to get some criticism.
Yep.
Talked about it in another episode, but it's also like the reflection of where you're chilling at, where you're vibrating at, to talk in like energetic terms. So this is fantastic. We've gone over this whole voice in our head, this fear-based worthiness type issue of, who am I to be the expert? Who am I? Oh my gosh. Like I don't know. I'm not as, oh my gosh. Then we start comparing ourselves to others. It's just awful. It's just
down the rabbit hole.
So it really is. Then you're just in trouble. We'll talk about that in another episode. But I want to recap really quickly the 7 tips to help you train your elephant, to stay with that analogy, to emotionally not let this stop you from actually doing what you need to do to become the authority. Because it is, you guys, I want to encourage you, it's about momentum. It is about taking steps in that right direction, about being the authority, if that is, of course, what you want to be in your business. Number 1 is understanding that all this self-doubt and asking these questions, who am I, is very internally directed. It's very selfish. The moment you direct it towards who you want to help and how you want to help them, and being confident that you want to help them. Like, okay, if we were to go to like a charity and say like, I want to feed the hungry, or, some sort of place, and just like, I want to feed the hungry today. Like, do you go, who am I to be feeding the hungry? You don't, because it's about them. It's not about you, right? Tip number 2 is, if you're not an authority right now, just remember that you're creating your story that will essentially be what transforms you into your authority. You might be in the breakdown. Well, on the other side of the breakdown is the breakthrough, which can allow you to step more into that role of an authority. And, just remember that. Number 3, in order to be an authority, no one's going to dub the authority. You have to declare it yourself. Number 4, make everything that you're doing bigger than yourself, about helping other people. Make that, just blow that up and expand it. And it's if you do that right, it's not about getting motivated anymore. And that's another episode, the distinction between motivation and inspiration. We'll talk about that. But inspiring you, being compelled, no matter what you do, no one can hold you back. You're going to be moving forward, stepping into that role. Number 5 is to make sure that to be an authority, that you first have to have this proof that what you can teach, what you preach, is replicatable by others. So help people any way that you can. Like, get in there with them, work with them one-on-one if you have to for free. Do what it takes to get the testimony on the case studies. Number 6, make sure that you're sharing freely, which means without anything in return, for free. And number 7, understanding that being an authority has nothing to do with being the best. You don't have to be the number one, however that is defined, because it's not defined, in order to become an authority. So there you have it, the 7 tips to overcoming self-doubt so you can own it and step into this place of being the authority. And just remember, you can't sell, especially if you're a personal brand, if you're not positioning yourself, branding yourself as the authority, and you can't even take any action. You won't put that blog post, that podcast, or that video, or that Periscope out there if you're sitting there feeling that yucky, untrue feeling of, who am I to be doing this? So you're going to have to get a better relationship with it. You're going to have to ease this. And again, it starts first with acknowledging that everybody feels this at some point or another. Most people become a hater on the authorities that put their stuff out there because it's too much for them to even bear. They're not willing to deal with this. And so they're just going to try and knock everybody else down. So you guys are the brave ones that are willing to do something about it, to put yourselves out there on the line, to face the criticism, to face the rejection, and you're doing it anyway. So I acknowledge all of you guys for doing that. That's awesome. High five. That's it for this episode. We'll see you in the next one. Are you frustrated that no matter how hard you hustle, no matter how much you get done in a day, you still feel like you have little results to show for it? Do you feel like you're doing everything right, but there's still something missing? Well, what if there was an easier way? What if your business could be fun, effortless, and profitable? Phoebe and I have put together a free audio MP3 for you, compiling the 77 business affirmations for creating success from the inside out. And we want to give it to you absolutely free. This is your chance to rewire your brain for bigger results in your life and your business. To get instant access absolutely free, simply visit 77affirmations.com. That's the number 77affirmations.com.